Welcome to Draw Process. I'm Ike, drawing pages of my comic book. We're on page 70 of episode 2 of First Sun and Sword today. And remember, these thumbnails are done ahead of time, but they're on the same Bristol board that I do the finished pencils on. You're going to see me figuring out shots and making decisions and how my brain is working here. And you'll see changes and erasing and changing it. So we've got, this shot here with the boat approaching, and then right at the arm with the sword on the guy's hip in the foreground here. He's much larger than the boat. It's imposing. The sword is a bit foreboding. It's a pretty strong image that I thought I would put there, but I changed my mind and decided to do a large establishing shot. Now, I wanted to really establish the physical space they're in. That's big for me. I really like it to be clear. I don't like to leave that to the reader's imagination. This is a visual medium, and I get that we can operate through metaphor, analogy, whatever, visually, but I like to show them. This is the show me style. So a nice establishing shot. Now, I wanted it to be clear that their small ship is approaching a large one with men on it, and it's going to be intimidating. And that doesn't have to be. I didn't have to draw a very large, dominating boat on the image to convey that. I could just show it. It's literally larger in comparison, so it's clear in that image. I wanted to capture a shot that shows Farah and Sun in the foreground, and then the men on the boat in the background. In this size panel, it's a bit challenging to do. If Farah and Sun here that are sitting on the boat in the foreground of this panel, if the camera's too close, maybe the sides of their faces might frame the shot, but you won't see anything else of them. You won't see the boat, really. It's challenging to set these shots up, but I have the intention of, I want to see both of the characters that are in the boat that's approaching the larger ship with the men on it. I want you to see the men lined up, and I want to go ahead and have the captain speak from the boat immediately before you even see who's speaking. So this puts you in the driver's seat. It puts you at the kind of perspective of our main characters. Literally, the camera's right there with their perspective. They can't even see this guy yet. They hear him calling to them, and then the camera will, the panels will show us closer up views of this guy as we are getting closer to him, as they get closer to him. So I'm trying to draw the reader, which is much like a viewer of a movie. I'm trying to draw them into the moment in real time. And there's and you could say, in a way, that means time feels like it's slowing down, but it's like real time. That allows for the building of anticipation, of tension. Farah's not speaking. She's just rowing along, trying to not to send any signals to them. What's she going to do in this situation? Who are these people she's encountering? So working that out in the roughs. You'll see that I end up erasing these panels above. I was trying for, he was speaking. Now we see Farah with her head down. She's not reacting at all. Maybe he rubs his neck and notices she's not even responding. What the heck's going on? And trying to get a little interaction between the two of them, build the tension more. I decide against that and go with a different plan. This panel here, I've got the boat that Farah and Son are on approaching, and there's a diagonal to the perspective, to the angle of the boat approaching. Bottom right corner, we've got the captain there with the men as a foreground element, but their boat's just approaching right at him, and from this angle he looks quite big in scale to the boat, and that's where the word balloon is. That's the focus. This panel here on the left, I wanted to establish the captain and his first mate, or his friend. This character, I wanted to establish them too. So I just wanted a moment where you can see that person's face. So they turn and look at each other because they notice something, is off, or they have some reaction to this woman with wearing armor, this that's approaching and maybe not speaking. So they kind of turn and look to each other, show that they have a connection, these two. In that panel, I try to push the extremes of how much can I crop, how much of a choice can I make in the camera angles. One head much larger than the others, a head being cropped off, maybe just a little hint of neck showing. How much do I need to show? And that's economy of space, the economy of the space you use. A lot is squeezed in this bottom panel set, and I'll comment on it when I'm doing it in the finished pencils. But we have Farah and Son pulling their boat up, parallel up alongside the larger ship. She's hunched over, and he calls out to her again, no, follow the orders, get up, obey, or else. And so this camera angle in this very last panel is looking up, worm's eye view, looking up at the captain up on the ship, who's up above her in an imposing stance. But at this angle, we can see her face. He cannot see her face. So we saw kind of his perspective on her, where we see the back of her head, and now we can see her face, which is full of anger and violence. So she's not going to show that to them, but that's how she's feeling. And again, what is the story? There has to be an interaction between the parts, and she is having a reaction. If I don't show you that, then it's not in the story. I mean, you can't just assume that the reader is imagining all of these things. You should show them or tell them. Basically, this is the shot that shows their small boat approaching the big one. That's clear shot, shows that there's other boats out there too, so there's no escape. There's no way they could outrun that big ship anyways. They could outmaneuver it first, but in terms of speed, there's no way with all the oars in the water they have. So these are the finished pencils. This is weeks later. I came back to the roughs because I did all the roughs to finish the book out. That's my way of making sure I am happy with how I wrote the story, how I wrote it in terms of how I drew it. And then I come in and add the more finished pencils. The roughs here are very loose guides, and I'm coming in to build it out. New decisions might be made at this stage. I might even erase something and completely redo it, but usually I don't have to completely redo a shot. So these pencils, originally it's 4H pencil, very light, hard lead, so it doesn't smudge, it doesn't show up very darkly on the page. But now I come in with a 2H or an H, and I am you'll see there's a lot of constructive drawing. When it comes to the beauty of the lines, the cleanliness, that is not number one. This is rough lines. And I'm getting where my inking style is in the same vein. I'm going for rough lines. I want to communicate, and the way I want to communicate storytelling here is very constructive drawing. Dynamic and constructive anatomy and environments, constructed in perspective. I want to build it out and let you see it. The lines, everything may not be like that pretty, but it is shown to you very clearly. And there's something to the roughness, the organicness of the lines that is useful, that is good. Maybe that's a comment for when we get to inking, but I used to ink. I looked at some comics I did. They're on my website, some folk tales I retold, and I used a heavy black and white style. Everything's either black or white. There's things that are more silhouetted, more in solid shadow. Now, I didn't take it as extreme as some people do. It isn't, it's challenging. It takes a design brain to do that. Some effort on that. But when you go for those heavy black and whites, some figures in all black in silhouette, or maybe just a few pieces of them popping out into the light, that style has a way of kind of flattening things out because it's very binary. All you have is black or white. And it's interesting. It creates interesting stark contrast and maybe some interesting looking things, because you have to design with that in mind. Powerful for guiding the eye. But it kind of flattens things out because if you have a mid-ground, even the idea of visual planes is binary. You break things into, okay, I've got this foreground element and now this background element. Let's separate them. One's black, one's white. That's not reality. Like this shot where I've got a head in the foreground and the guy in the background. They're not flat. Like they both have depth. So I can't, if you just give a solid treatment to each one, it does kind of flatten that out. Same thing to a degree if you use certain cross-hatching techniques, inking techniques. I've been doing very much of an organic style of inking and hatching lines. That is just however I feel like doing it. And it's similar to how I pencil. It's very messy, like these pencils, scribbled in. But it allows for all kinds of variation in line quality, in the angle of the hatching lines, and the thickness and all that. So that I've got a very analog, a very diverse range. There's a lot of fine detail in the range versus if it's just black and white, or if you're using more polished, coded cross-hatching techniques, let's say all of the hatching lines are at the same angle, thickness, and running parallel to each other until maybe you have certain lighting situations where or layers of visual planes where now you're adding a cross line, like a lines in the opposite direction or something like that. If you start to do that, now you are again flattening it a bit because you're simplifying what is analog in reality is very diverse and across the spectrum, and you're trying to categorize it. You're trying to say, well, this qualifies in this range, distance, of lighting situation. So it has this treatment. Everything else I'm going to categorize it this. In nature, there isn't these categories that force things on one side or the other of the binary. So I find there's something nice about the organic quality of lines that I'm using, and how it can allow for greater depth, greater range. And so I like that, and I like how it's just organic. It's just easy to do. And it lets me do it. Just tell the story. Tell it and do it quickly. Because that's what I want to do. The goal here is to master a language where I can just do it. It's not, to me, this is not like becoming an author who wants to fine-tune the use of language, or a poet or something who's fine-tuning their poems. This is more like being a public speaker. It's a performance. You get really good at communicating, at doing something in real time as a performance, what choices are made, and when they're made, they're presented immediately as the choices they were. There's no time to dress it up. That's that's the goal or the direction I'm trying to go here. Because it allows for a particular kind of human expression that you can't do otherwise. You can't do it with polish. It's got to be in the moment. And over time, it will get better. The anatomy, a lot of the qualities of the line work and so on, they're going to get better over time. The storytelling will get better over time, and the consistency of the way that I draw and anatomy and faces and everything, and do my inking will get more consistent over time, because I will. I'm going to get better, and I'm moving in an authentic direction. I'm trying to move towards what feels authentic to me, rather than referencing what other people do and trying to use those techniques. But it's a longer path to get that consistency to show up for people to see it. Will take longer, because there's no shortcut to developing my voice, my actual voice, to where it's natural to me, so I can just speak and I know that it sounds like me, right? I can just draw it and it looks like I draw. That's the goal to me. That's developing my artistry, my voice. So this is an 08 micron, just for straight panel borders, and I go ahead and use that for the word balloons as well. And then I come in with a G pen nib, pen and ink, dip pen, and lay down all the inks, and then I'll come in with a little bit of a whiteout, opaque white paint and a brush pen. I'll erase the pencils from under the inks, just rub the whole paper and eraser. And then I'll touch up the inks, and sometimes I won't get the nib back out because I've already washed it. I'll just grab a micron, a brush pen, and maybe add a few more lines, or even add some more blacks in certain areas to help with the depth of the image. And so you'll see how this goes here. Very tiny people on the boat, abstracted. Sometimes lines are not closed all the way; they're just left open. There's so many ways to convey depth, to give a sense of depth to your image. And one is even just line quality, not just weight, but if the line is, if the lines are getting more wobbly, the shape's less clear, the line's not even closed all the way or overlapping like messily, even that can be a way to indicate something is out of focus or is further away. I have extreme, nearsightedness. So I've spent my life, looking at things in the world and it looking blurry. I'm very used to varied vision. And so when I scribble in these images, they're blurry in a way. I leave them blurry. And then I'm using hard lines to finish everything. But the hard lines are not meant to be accurate. And it would be like a very nearsighted person seeing a blurry scene and just trying to put clear lines over it. Like to trace the blurry line. And so it ends up not very clear. I don't know if that helps you see what I'm saying. That analogy, some people might, maybe that clicks, but the finished line work is not meant to be the sharp edge to the actual objects in the scene. It is tracing the blurry object in my mind, that's there in this scene. That is how I think of drawing. I'm not trying to actually draw the edges of things, the actual lines to represent the things that are actually there. To me, it is the conveying of things that are behind the paper, almost like actually there, not on the paper. It's very freeing to approach things that way. You don't have to worry so much about what your lines look like, and how clean the image looks, because you're not worried about that. It's not about the lines you put down. If you were drawing if you had glass up, I don't know, you're looking out a window and you're drawing on the window of what you see out there, and you're like, okay, the tree's here, but you're not taking forever to outline every leaf. You're just throwing it in. And in that sense, you're not worried about your line quality, because you know that you're just conveying what's out there. It's actually there. Like, look at it yourself. But I've captured enough of the meaning of it, of the appearance of it. So, yeah. Anyways, that kind of approach or way of thinking about what I'm doing when I put lines down is very freeing. And I do think it's different than how some people approach it. I think, I get comments about like, it seems weird how I do things, and, maybe surprising that I can just like, how are you pulling that out of your mind? And like, how do you know to put the lines there? And, I don't, I'm not worried about the lines. Okay. There's all of these guys have a similar look. It's kind of like part of their uniform as they shave their heads and beards, and going for a little bit much stockier build of person. And kind of interesting that the soldiers on land that we saw looked like really good long distance runners, very tall, lean guys, which makes sense because they have to run around on foot with spears and find and attack people. These guys they're on the boat. They just need strength and sturdiness, right? So they're not running around. So I do consider things like that when I think about, these people on the boat. So there's certain elements of their uniforms, their armor. There's certain elements that are tied in to the soldiers we saw in the streets fighting earlier, that physically are built very differently. But but certain elements of the of their costume, let's say, of the design, is still there. That was made up in the moment. I'm just trying to visualize, these people here, and I'm trying to remember things I've seen in movies or whatever, like kind of like the Spartan or Roman. Maybe the Roman is a good example of like hardened leather armor or something. The skirts, the leather strips of the skirt. Another thing about this organic kind of rough inking style, you'll see that some of the lines I laid in on that panel I just did are wood grain on the planks of the bench, and this kind of, well, the other one's kind of like down near the feet. It's kind of a footrest, but there's a little bit of wood grain conveyed. So I can use these lines to do whatever I want. It's not that I thought this is wood, it must have grain on it. It's more like I'm trying to make a balanced image of what's there. And so how much do I need to convey? What parts of the image are in focus? How is the depth clear? So if I left the bench with no lines on it, nothing there is in shadow, so I can't use hatching lines that are simply shadow, like underneath her. But so there's no shadow on it, but if I left it purely blank paper, then it doesn't tie in. It doesn't feel like at the right depth, at the right focus to the camera. So, or at the right balance of the image. So I take that opportunity to throw in some lines. And what kind of lines? Well, I'm going to go with texture, because I can't just do shadow. So all kinds of little decisions like that. And I try to rely on color some to make a finished image and not need it to just be the blacks and the whites that make everything work best. Because I do color this. But in the future, I want to try a black and white next issue. Probably a shorter issue too. Shorter stories maybe. So when I do that, I'm probably going to put a little more effort into the inks in terms of creating depth and separating parts. But right now, I know the color is helping with it. It's flat colors with a highlight layer and a shadow layer to help create depth. And it does. It helps quite a bit. You can kind of see how it helps pop the heads off of the background, or this guy's shoulder off of the other guy. But the colors are generally still like not extreme. I'm not going with like when we get this close up of her, she's not extremely cool and the background's really warm to really create high contrast. I just know there's enough contrast. I'm not going extreme. But that's for simplicity. It keeps the colors very simple and straightforward to do, to accomplish, to actually complete them. But it's enough contrast because of my inking style and then using the highlight layer, the shadow layer. It's enough contrast for the images to be clear and for the book to be consistent in how it's colored. And I can't do too much more than that because to prepare for doing a full black and white issue, I might as well do it this way because I won't have any color next time. So be the practice of your art and encourage others to do the same. I'll see you next week.